The air in Maplewood always feels cooler in the morning, the kind of soft breeze that carries the scent of roasted coffee beans from the cafe down on Ashbury Street. That's where I usually start my days, at least when life gives me a calm one. Ashbury Cafe isn't fancy. It's got chipped paint on the chairs, faded photographs of the lake pinned to the walls, and a clock that's been 3 minutes slow for as long as I can remember. But to me, that cafe has always been the heart of this small town in northern Illinois. People here wake up to the sound of kids running off to Maplewood Elementary, to the rhythm of frying bacon and the hum of old country songs playing faintly from someone's truck outside. It's a simple life, the kind only folks who grew up here truly understand. I'm 25, born and raised among these quiet streets, and though I've seen people come and go, I never imagined just how quickly kindness can be mistaken for weakness. The morning it all happened started like any other. I had slept lightly, my old alarm chiming from the cracked screen of my phone, a worn-out Galaxy from 5 years ago. The glass was splintered at one corner, and sometimes the screen flickered, but I couldn't bring myself to replace it. It held too many memories, voicemails from my dad, who passed 5 years ago, messages from my best friend before she moved out west, photos from high school football games where everyone in town showed up like it was the Super Bowl. I never cared much about looking modern. I worked as a receptionist at Lakeshore Medical Group, a small family clinic that still kept paper files for patients. People around there knew me as someone who said good morning to every single nurse and brought leftover brownies on Fridays. It wasn't much of a life story, but it was honest. That Saturday, my mom called early, reminding me that we had brunch with my brother, his wife, and a few others from the family. The weather was clear, bright sun bouncing off the church steeple as I walked to the cafe. I had been looking forward to the gathering. Mom said they'd reserved the long table by the window overlooking the street. I wore a simple blue dress I'd had for years and brushed my hair into a neat ponytail. I remember thinking I felt presentable, maybe even pretty, in my own quiet way. But that's the kind of day when life enjoys testing your dignity the most. By the time I arrived, everyone was already seated. My brother Brad waved me over, his easy grin welcoming as always. He worked at the local hardware store, and even in his 30s, he still looked like the same freckled kid I'd shared chores with back home. His wife, Kelsey, was the opposite of him. Polished, proud, and perpetually glued to her phone. She worked in marketing for a small tech company called Bluestone Media and often reminded people she was scaling rapidly, whatever that meant. She never forgot to dress to impress. Her nails gleamed pink and perfect, and her phone, one of those newest models with a gold finish, sat beside her mimosa glass like jewelry on display. I forced a smile as I slipped into my chair beside her, my old phone resting quietly near my plate. She looked at it before she looked at me, smirking as she said, "Oh, that thing still works?" Everyone's laughter came a little too fast, a little too cruel. I could feel my stomach tighten. "You know," she went on, brushing her shiny blonde hair off her shoulder, "they actually stopped making updates for that model 2 years ago." She said it sweetly, like she was giving me advice, but her voice dripped with something sharp that cut right through me. Brad chuckled awkwardly, trying to change the subject, but she wasn't finished. "It's kind of cute, though," she said. "Vintage. Maybe you should frame it instead of using it." I heard the waiter set down plates of pancakes and omelets, smelled the butter melting in the air, but everything tasted distant after that. My cheeks burned, and for a second, I thought about defending myself. I wanted to say that not everyone needed to chase the newest version of everything, that some of us still liked what was slow and real. But instead, I just smiled, pressing the cracked corner of my phone against my palm. I told myself she didn't mean harm, that maybe she was just bored. Still, the table felt heavier, and conversations blurred into noise. I watched the sunlight reflect off her glass screen, while mine stayed dark beside my coffee cup, like some kind of secret I didn't know I was keeping. After brunch, as people started leaving, Kelsey leaned toward me. "I don't mean to make fun," she whispered. "I just think you should treat yourself sometime. You work so hard, you deserve something nice." There was something almost kind in her tone, but it sat crooked on her lips. I nodded, said maybe I'd think about it, and walked home through the bright streets, pretending the tears in my eyes were just from the wind. At home, I placed my phone on the counter and turned on the kettle. The silence in my little apartment pressed around me. Photos of my dad hung near the window, him in his old baseball cap, smiling after fixing the fence one summer afternoon. He'd been the kind of man who never judged anyone by what they owned. I could almost hear his voice saying, "People show their worth when nobody's watching." I let that thought settle in as the water began to boil. But deep down, I still felt the sting. There's a certain kind of humiliation that doesn't leave right away, the kind that crawls under your skin, that comes back to whisper at you in the quiet. That night, I sat on my couch scrolling through old messages. There was one from my dad, recorded in his gravelly voice, telling me to stay kind but never small. I whispered those words out loud, the way people pray when they aren't sure anyone's listening. The light from my old phone flickered softly against the wall as I drifted into thought. Sunday arrived slow, with church bells echoing down Maplewood Lane. I didn't go to church often, but that morning I felt drawn there. The small white building on the corner of Pine Street smelled of old wood and hymnal paper. Mrs. Haggerty, who'd been playing the piano there since before I was born, smiled when she saw me. "Haven't seen you in a while, sweetheart," she said, and I told her maybe I just needed some peace today. The sermon was about forgiveness and pride. I tried to take the words into my chest, but part of me wondered whether some people even deserved forgiveness when they enjoyed breaking others down. Later that afternoon, I passed by the community park. Families were playing catch, kids riding bikes with helmets too big for their heads. Somewhere across the street, a man grilled hot dogs while his radio played the Sunday game. Life went on, simple and predictable, but I felt like a window through which everyone's joy just passed. On impulse, I called my mom. She asked if I was still upset about yesterday. "Honey," she said, "you know Kelsey. She's young and loves showing off. Don't let it get to you." I wanted to believe her, but something inside me began to shift. I didn't like how humiliation had become entertainment for people who thought kindness meant weakness. That evening, I sat again by my window with tea, my old phone still beside me. I turned on the screen and opened the voice recorder app, realizing I sometimes kept it running accidentally when I forgot to close it. Scrolling through saved files, one caught my attention with the cafe's date and time stamped just yesterday. I clicked out of curiosity. Static, then voices. I heard laughter, dishes clattering, and then Kelsey's voice, mocking, exactly as I'd remembered. But then another voice overlapped. Someone's worried whisper about her numbers not adding up and a transfer she needed to hide. It was faint, almost drowned by music. I replayed it twice before realizing that second voice belonged to her coworker, a man named Greg I'd met at a barbecue once. I frowned, my heart racing a little. Maybe it was harmless talk, maybe not. Still, I saved it, unsure why. I didn't think much more of it that night, though something about that recording kept echoing in my mind. I walked to the window and looked at the streetlights flickering outside. Maplewood was quiet again, the kind of quiet that lets you hear your own heartbeat. I realized maybe part of growing up meant accepting that human nature could be cruel one moment and kind the next. But I never suspected that life, with its odd sense of balance, was already preparing something I couldn't see coming. When Monday came, work at Lakeshore Medical was busy as usual. People came in coughing, babies cried, phones rang off the hook. I tucked my old phone inside my purse and threw myself into the routine, trying to block out what had happened. But during lunch, when I scrolled through local news on the office computer, I saw an article headline that made my stomach twist. It said, "Bluestone Media's finances were under investigation." No names, no details, just a note about an internal issue being reviewed by state regulators. Immediately, Kelsey's laughter from Saturday rang in my head again, sharp and crystal clear. The coincidence sent a chill up my spine. That afternoon, I drove home slower than usual, watching the new maple leaves blow across the road. I parked by the curb and just sat there, staring at my phone in my lap. That same old phone she laughed at, the one that somehow held a piece of her world without her even knowing. I didn't understand yet what that meant, only that it suddenly felt heavier in my hands, like it was more than glass and circuits, like it had a heartbeat of its own. Inside my apartment, I played the recording again. The sound was still messy, unclear, but the familiarity of their voices made it undeniable. For the first time since that brunch, I felt something steadier than hurt, a quiet certainty that sometimes we don't have to fight for truth. Sometimes it finds its way out. One pixel, one whisper, one click at a time. As I lay in bed that night, the moonlight spilling across my room, I thought about my dad again. He once told me that true strength is when you can walk away without needing everyone to see you win. That idea comforted me, though deep inside, a part of me knew that something larger was already in motion, something beyond my control. Hey, if you've made it this far into the story, take a second to show some love. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment below. Say something like, Stories like this remind us what real strength looks like. Your support helps keep these emotional stories coming. When I woke the next morning, fog rolled in over the streets, turning Maplewood into a watercolor. I took a slow sip of coffee and stood barefoot by the window. The phone buzzed with a message from my mom. Kelsey wanted to visit later. I thought about the irony, my stomach nodding in quiet recognition. Maybe she was coming to apologize. Or maybe she still wanted to remind me I was behind the times. Either way, I knew now that things around me were shifting. Life was giving me pieces of a puzzle I didn't ask for, and soon enough, I would see the picture it was making. That day, I cleaned the apartment, folded laundry, and took out the trash, keeping my mind busy. My thoughts wandered to the recording again. How strange it was that a simple accident, my old phone, could store something so consequential. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sometimes the things people see as worthless are the ones that quietly hold the truth. And maybe, just maybe, fate has a sense of humor after all. When the doorbell rang, I paused before opening it. The light from the hallway fell across the room, cutting a clear line between comfort and confrontation. Behind that door was the beginning of everything that would soon unravel. But for that moment, I just took a breath and glanced once more at my phone resting on the table, silent but alive with secrets neither of us had meant to keep. When I opened the door that afternoon, Kelsey stood there wearing sunglasses even though the sky was overcast. Her perfume floated into my apartment before she even stepped inside, something floral and sharp. She smiled like nothing had ever happened, holding a paper bag from a bakery downtown, Maple Crust & Co., the one that sold overpriced croissants everyone in town pretended to enjoy. "Thought I'd bring you something sweet," she said, and I stepped aside, forcing a polite grin. She walked in, glancing around my living room, her manicured nails tapping lightly against her phone. It struck me that she hadn't come to apologize. She was scanning my space, comparing, measuring, judging without words, the same way she had done with me at brunch. We sat at my small kitchen table. I poured coffee from my old-fashioned drip pot, the kind you had to wait patiently for, while she scrolled through some notifications on her phone. She didn't even look up as she said, "Wild week, huh? My office is having a rough time because of some dumb report that leaked." My chest tightened. I knew exactly what she was talking about. "Rumors going around, but none of it's true," she added quickly, as if she needed to convince herself. I worked my tail off to get that account, and some jealous intern decided to stir trouble. I forced myself to nod, even though I felt uneasy. The way she tossed words like rumors and jealous made her guilt smell obvious. "That sounds tough," I said calmly. "Do you know who started it?" She shrugged, sipping her coffee without sugar, the kind of bitter she probably pretended to enjoy. "No idea, but this town loves gossip, you know that," she said, laughing a little too loudly. I studied her face, the small twitch near her left eye, the careful way she glanced at my counter as if wondering whether I even owned matching cups. She had always needed to feel higher, cleaner, richer than everyone else. I thought about the voice recording again, the faint sound of her and Greg whispering about moving numbers, hiding something, covering tracks. I hadn't told anyone yet. I didn't even know what to make of it myself. But as she sat there pretending to be the victim, a quiet anger started to simmer inside me, something stronger than the sting of embarrassment. Part of me wanted to tell her right then that I knew, that life had already given her the rope to hang herself with, and she didn't even see it yet. But I stayed silent, letting her believe I was still the small, harmless one. After she left, I walked to the window again. The clouds hung low that day, gray pressing against the rooftops. I replayed the voices for what felt like the 100th time. Greg's tone sounded nervous, while Kelsey's seemed sharp, commanding. The words, "move the payments" and "they can't trace it" weren't exactly innocent chatter. My stomach churned. Could it be serious? Or was I overthinking, desperate to make meaning out of humiliation? I didn't know. What I did know was that silence wouldn't help anyone, not even her. So that night, while the rain tapped lightly on the window, I found myself searching the Illinois State Business Complaint Portal. They had an anonymous tip line. I hesitated for almost an hour before typing out the few details I knew. Alleged financial mismanagement at Bluestone Media, involving 2 employees, names included. I hit send and closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I didn't do it out of vengeance, I told myself. I did it because wrong is wrong, no matter who laughs first. The next few days went strangely quiet. At Lakeshore Medical, patients came in complaining about allergies, back pain, and late bills, and life moved as if nothing extraordinary was happening. But small towns have a way of collecting whispers faster than the internet. By Thursday, I overheard 2 nurses talking near the vending machine. "You hear about that girl from Bluestone?" one said. "They say the state's looking into her. Fraud or something." My heart skipped a beat, though I pretended to focus on the coffee I was pouring. "I heard her husband's sister works here in town," the other replied. "Can you imagine the embarrassment?" Their voices faded as they walked down the hall, leaving me frozen in place. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. Another part knew karma had its own rhythm, hitting right on time when pride got loud. That evening, I went to visit my mom. She lived on the other side of Maplewood, close to the lake where kids fished in summer. She was making pot roast, the smell of onions and gravy filling the kitchen when I walked in. "You look tired," she said, hugging me. I told her work had been stressful, which was the half-truth. We sat down to dinner, and she started talking about the town's usual dramas. Broken fences, a new grocery store rumored to open near the highway. But then she said, "Brad called me earlier. He's worried about Kelsey. Some state people showed up at her office asking questions." I set my fork down slowly, pretending to be surprised. Mom sighed. "She must be scared to death. I know she can be different, but she's still family." I nodded and looked at my plate, the food gone cold. Family? Yes. But she had never treated us like one. Still, I didn't want to be the one who brought her down. Not publicly. Yet fate had already started turning the wheel without waiting for my permission. That night, I walked along the lake to clear my head. The water mirrored the moon above, calm and endless. I thought about how one small act, a phone recording I didn't even know I had made, had sparked something that was now completely beyond me. Stories like these seemed to belong to TV shows, not real life. I stayed out there until the air grew cold and sharp, the kind that wakes you up fully to your own choices. For the first time, I felt like I was no longer the timid girl sitting at the family cafe table, swallowing my humiliation. Something inside me had changed shape, and I didn't know yet what the new me was becoming. On Friday morning, everything exploded. The local channel, WMPL News, opened its morning segment with a headline that lit up every phone in town. Bluestone Media, executive under investigation for fund misuse. They never said names directly, but any resident of Maplewood knew who they meant. By noon, the story had spread across every group chat, every lunch table. I sat at my desk, my hands trembling as one of my coworkers turned her screen toward me. "Isn't this your sister-in-law's company?" she asked, her eyes wide. I felt the world slow down for a second. "Yeah," I said softly. "I think it is." Deep inside, I knew what the investigators were probably looking at. The evidence lodged somewhere deep inside my old phone, the digital imprint of someone's arrogance caught by pure accident. That evening, I sat alone again in the cafe, this time at a corner table near the window. The same old clock ticked unevenly on the wall. Life outside went on as usual, kids chasing each other down the street, an old man feeding pigeons near the parking lot. I watched people pass by, thinking about what justice really meant. It's not always screaming or pointing fingers. Sometimes justice dresses up as coincidence, showing up quietly while everyone else looks the other way. Halfway through my cup of coffee, I realized that part of me pitied Kelsey. She was probably home, terrified, calling lawyers, trying to control the narrative. But when she laughed at me in front of everyone, she hadn't considered the weight of casual cruelty. That's what makes people like her dangerous. They believe power protects them from truth. It never does. The truth just waits, silent and patient. It finds every crack in the facade. If this story has moved you, take a second right now to support these kinds of powerful life tales. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new ones. Then leave a comment below saying something like, "Stories like this make you believe karma is real." It really helps this community grow. The days that followed felt strangely hollow. Mom called often, sounding worried about how Brad was coping. I told her he'd be fine, that truth had its own way of setting things right, though she didn't quite understand what I meant. On Sunday, I finally went to see them. Their house, a 2-story colonial on Maple Street, felt heavy with silence. Brad opened the door, his face pale. "Things are bad," he said quietly. Behind him, I saw Kelsey sitting on the couch, eyes red, her gold phone nowhere in sight. "They froze my accounts," she sobbed when she saw me. "I swear I didn't do anything wrong. Greg told me it was fine to move the money. I just trusted him." Her hands trembled, and for a second I almost reached out. Almost. But then the memory of her laughter flashed in my mind, the way she'd looked at me like I was beneath her. I stepped back slightly. "I'm sure the truth will come out," I said calmly. "It always does." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the tone in her voice, that same mix of fear and pride. I knew she wasn't just embarrassed now. She was exposed. And the irony cut sharper than any insult ever could. My phone, the very thing she had mocked, had been the one to hold the truth all along. Sometimes I wondered if that was fate's way of teaching her humility, or mine. Over the next week, investigators from Chicago came to Bluestone Media. They questioned employees, confiscated computers, and collected data. Maplewood buzzed with gossip louder than ever. People who used to admire Kelsey now whispered her name like it carried bad luck. Even the cafe waitress asked me softly whether she was okay. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, stirring my coffee until it went cold. But fate wasn't done weaving. One evening, I received an email from a state investigator. It was short, polite, thanking me for providing information that had been crucial in verifying Bluestone Media's irregularities. They didn't know who I was. My report was anonymous. But reading that line made my hands go cold. That's when I realized my involvement had been far larger than I'd imagined. My small act of honesty, maybe even decency, had brought everything to light. It frightened me as much as it freed me. The next weekend, as fall settled into Maplewood, I walked to the farmers market downtown. Booths lined the street with pumpkins, jars of local honey, and apple cider donuts still warm from the fryer. Life continued as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Kids laughed, dogs barked, neighbors waved hello. I felt a strange peace walking through the crowd, my old phone tucked safely in my coat pocket. People might see only its cracks and slowness, but to me, it was something else entirely now. A reminder that truth, no matter how old or ordinary it seems, never loses its power. On Sunday evening, as the sun dipped behind the red barns on the horizon, I stopped by the lake again. The air smelled like wood smoke and damp leaves. Sitting by the dock, I looked at the reflection of the setting sun rippling across the surface. My old phone buzzed with a message from Brad. "Everything's going to be okay. Thank you for being patient with us." I didn't reply, just stared at the message until the screen dimmed. A part of me knew things would never be the same again. Not for them, and not for me. I took one slow breath and whispered into the wind, as if my father might still be listening somewhere beyond the water. "You were right, Dad. People show their worth when nobody's watching." The wind moved through the reeds, scattering tiny waves across the surface, like quiet applause from the unseen. And in that silence, I realized something simple yet vast, that the things we endure often become the very tools that redeem us, and that sometimes, all it takes for justice to arrive is the courage to stay silent long enough for truth to find its voice. The frost came early that year, crawling over the grass in pale threads that glistened under the sunrise. Maplewood always felt different in November, quieter somehow, as if the town took a collective breath before winter truly arrived. I had been waking up earlier lately, not because I needed to, but because peace seemed easiest to find before the world began demanding attention. The news about Kelsey and Bluestone Media had continued to circulate everywhere. Reporters from Chicago had come to film quick clips near the town sign, the kind that play for 10 seconds between weather forecasts and sports updates. People recognized her face now, not from selfies or perfectly filtered photos, but from the kind of footage that plays next to words like scandal and fraud. It was strange watching her go from unstoppable to invisible in such little time. She and Brad had mostly shut themselves off from everyone. My mom still brought them casseroles because that's what moms do when the world falls apart. They bake. But she told me that Kelsey hardly came to the door anymore. "She's not the same," Mom said softly one evening over the phone. "You'd think she'd melt into tears, but she's icy, like she's trying to survive by pretending she still controls the story." I didn't know whether to pity her or not. Maybe both. People like her live off perception, and when that mask cracks, they have nothing left to hold. One chilly Friday, I walked downtown for breakfast. The smell of cinnamon rolls drifted from Carter's Diner, the same place my dad took me when I was 10. I ordered black coffee and scrambled eggs, the kind that came out slightly overcooked, just how small-town diners seem to make them. As I sat there breathing in the warmth, 2 older men at the next table were murmuring about Bluestone again. "Heard they froze all their marketing contracts," one said. "Apparently that blonde manager ran the whole thing into the ground." I sipped my coffee in silence, the words washing over me. I didn't feel proud or satisfied, What pulsed through me now was something heavier, like the ache after too long of carrying a secret. That afternoon, Brad called for the first time in weeks. His voice was subdued, almost breaking. "Can you come over?" he asked. "She's not doing too great." I agreed, even though my gut twisted. When I pulled up to their house, the front yard was cluttered with windblown leaves. The blinds were drawn. Kelsey sat at the dining table, her hair tied back messily, no makeup, wearing a sweatshirt that looked borrowed from Brad. It was the first time I'd seen her stripped of every layer of performance. "They're charging Greg," she said without looking up. Apparently he admitted to moving money under my authorization. I didn't think it was serious. I just wanted to make the budgets look good before the next quarter. Her voice trembled, a thin, tired sound. "You think I'm evil, don't you?" she asked. I hesitated, then shook my head slightly. "I think you're human," I said. "But you hurt people without realizing it. Sometimes life finds ways to hold up mirrors." She stared at me for a long time before whispering, "Well, I hate what I see." There was nothing left for me to say. I left them sitting there, quiet beneath the low hum of their refrigerator. On the drive home, snow had started to fall in thin, uncertain flakes. I rolled down the window for a second just to feel it. The air smelled of pine and exhaust, raw and familiar. That was the thing about truth. It doesn't erase pain, but it clears the fog so you can finally breathe clean air again. A few days later, WMPL broke the story completely. Greg was arrested on charges of fraud and embezzlement. The investigation cleared Kelsey of criminal intent, though her name would forever remain attached to the scandal. The town softened a little toward her afterward. People stopped whispering as harshly, and even my mom seemed relieved. "I always said she wasn't bad, just lost," she told me as she stirred chili in a pot big enough to feed a neighborhood. I didn't correct her. Everyone needs to keep their comforts, even if they're built on partial truths. I found myself walking past the cafe on Ashbury Street again that weekend, the place where it all began. The same clock still lagged a few minutes behind time. I ordered coffee to go, then lingered anyway, staring out at the parking lot. Tables hummed with chatter and steaming mugs. Nothing seemed different except me. The memory of that brunch, her mocking laughter, the sting of humiliation, all of it seemed so far away now. But knowing where it had led, I almost felt grateful in a strange way. If it hadn't been for that moment of cruelty, maybe none of the hidden truth would have surfaced at all. Maybe the town would still believe in her perfect illusion. Fate has a strange sense of direction. It sometimes uses pain as a compass. I went back home and took out my old phone. The cracks on the glass looked deeper now, like the lines on my palm. I had thought about replacing it recently, but somehow I couldn't. It was more than an object. It was proof that quiet things still held power, that simplicity could withstand what arrogance could not. When the battery blinked low, I plugged it in and scrolled through my old photos. One stopped me. A picture of my dad laughing outside the fishing shop, holding a thermos of coffee and pointing toward the lake. I smiled. He'd always believed that everything that happens, no matter how hard, circles back to teach us value. I thought about how this strange sequence of humiliation, truth, and reckoning had made me see life in sharper focus. The following Monday, I attended a small charity event at the town hall for Maplewood's Winter Coat Drive. The same townspeople who had once sat silently through Kelsey's spectacle at brunch now chatted about forgiveness and community. There was a sense of restoration in the air. I volunteered to sort donated items, and when Kelsey walked in unexpectedly, everyone turned. Her hair was cut shorter, neater. No false glamour this time, just quiet composure. She looked smaller, but perhaps more real. We caught each other's eyes across the room. No words passed, no nod, no smile, but something unspoken moved between us, fragile but honest. Maybe that was her apology. Maybe it was my forgiveness. I didn't need more than that. Later that evening, after the event, I stepped out into the cold. The lampposts shimmered in the frost like faint constellations. Life in Maplewood had a rhythm again. People would keep talking about the scandal for a while, then eventually move on to new gossip. But what stayed with me wasn't the story. They always fade. What lingered was the feeling that character, when tested, doesn't break. It is refined. If you felt this story deeply, help keep storytelling like this alive. Tap the like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and write a short comment like, "Powerful, emotional, and unforgettable. What a story about truth." Your support helps us continue building these meaningful life lessons. A few months passed. Winter came heavy that year. Snow blanketed Maplewood in silence, and time slowed down into something close to peace. Every Sunday, I met my mom for breakfast at Carter's Diner. We'd sit by the window, eating pancakes with melted butter and maple syrup that thickened as it cooled. Sometimes Brad joined us, quieter than before but warmer too, as if humility had softened the jagged edges of his pride. Kelsey didn't come often, but when she did, there was no jewelry, no high heels, just a plain coat and hands that kept busy holding a mug of hot chocolate. We never spoke about the past directly, but we didn't need to. Life had already written the lesson in ink too permanent to erase. Lakeshore Medical hired new staff as the flu season set in. I found myself staying later at work, organizing patient charts and making sure every elderly person left with their prescriptions filled. The nurses teased me for being too dedicated, though I just liked feeling useful again. In those boring, repetitive hours, I realized that purpose didn't always come from grand justice or revenge. Sometimes it came from doing the small things right after everything else goes wrong. One night, while closing up the office, a young mother rushed in carrying a baby wrapped in blankets. She was crying, panicked, saying she couldn't afford a hospital. I took them into the small urgent care room, called Dr. Finlay, and stayed beside her until the baby's breathing calmed. When she finally smiled through her tears, thanking me over and over, I remembered that quiet recording my phone had captured months ago, the one that turned humiliation into proof, laughter into justice. That same phone now rested warm in my hand, lighting up the dim hallway, guiding the way. After that night, I started journaling again. Words came easy when I thought about everything that had unfolded. I wrote not as someone who'd won, but as someone who'd learned. I wrote about humility, forgiveness, and the way truth reveals itself when you stop trying to chase it. Each sentence felt like dusting off another layer of old pain, until only the truth remained. By spring, things in Maplewood found new footing. Bluestone Media was bought by another firm. Greg was serving time, and people went back to their daily routines. Kelsey began working part-time at the library. I passed her once while checking out a book and heard her recommend a novel to an elderly man with genuine warmth in her tone. She didn't notice me, and I didn't interrupt her. Seeing her like that, grounded, human, was its own kind of closure. A few weeks later, the Ashbury Cafe put up a new chalkboard outside. In wobbly handwriting it read, "Be kind, life remembers." I stood there, looking at the words, thinking about how fitting they were. That cafe had witnessed humiliation, justice, and transformation, all within a single year. Inside, regulars still chatted over pancakes, and the old clock still ticked against time, still 3 minutes late. Some things never change, and maybe they shouldn't. That evening, I took a walk down to the lake again. The water reflected the sky's pastel streaks. I brought my phone with me one last time, scrolling through photos until I reached the one from brunch all those months ago. Everyone was smiling. Nobody would have guessed what was coming. I looked at myself in that image, quiet, patient, holding a cracked phone, and realized that was the moment everything had begun. I hit delete, not out of anger, but out of release. The story didn't need a relic anymore. Its lesson lived inside me now. When I walked back home, streetlights flickered on one by one, painting the sidewalks in soft gold. Each glow felt like a reminder that even broken things cast light when given the chance. In the window reflection, I caught sight of myself, not the girl who was mocked, but the woman who had learned that grace is the bravest kind of revenge. Maybe that's what my father meant all along when he said, "Let time speak for you." Time had spoken, and it had said everything.